looking at? Not that one.
Good afternoon, America. Shane Jenkins here with Chestnut Checkers. Thank you for tuning in today. I am live in studio with a guest. He's our first in-studio guest, and he is a personal friend of mine who I did a lot of time with in the D.C. jail. He is none other than Peter Schwartz, or a.k.a. Pete Schwartz, or what I like to call Fat Pete. But
Thanks, Fat Pete.
He's my friend, so I've known him a long time. We've been through a lot together. We actually rode the bus. We rode the bus. We went to Northern Neck Regional Jail together. And we did a lot of time in the DC jail together. But so welcome, Pete. Good to have you.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, I think it was like 2 years and 3 months we did in the DC jail together. It was a long time. Felt like 20 years and 3 months. But.
All right, so you're here in Houston, which is awesome. I know you're from Kentucky, right?
That's right. I love Houston, though. I mean, the weather's always beautiful. And in Kentucky, we're covered up underwater. Our whole state's flooded right now. So,
well, give us a month or two, and you'll be sweating to death down here. You'll probably lose 20 pounds, and you won't be Fat Pete anymore. So,
didn't work on you.
So, just a little history. Pete and I, it was always Fat Shane or Fat Pete. So we always give each other a hard time because we are probably 250 ish. You're probably around the same too.
Like 180, 190, but whatever. All right, I made that up.
So you're on a sabbatical kind of. Like, I will say this, like, being out here in society has been a challenge. Like, I didn't think that it was going to be as emotionally and mentally challenging as it was. You know, we were pardoned by the President of the United States, and I will always say this till my last day on earth, but thank God for President Trump for pardoning us and giving us our freedom back. But like there's a part of me that just does not feel whole inside, and it is an emotional and mental thing. But Pete has kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you've kind of just taken off on your motorcycle and you're traveling around the United States.
That's true. I'm on day 26 of my road trip right now.
Okay, so tell us, like, how's your journey been? What have you been seeing? I know you've probably been reconnecting with some J6 people, and tell us.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I wanted to expand on that you were saying is this is something that I absolutely needed. It's not just a fickle venture that I went on. I went to maximum security penitentiaries, and so it's very, very violent, extreme, and like I was just talking to a good friend of mine today, and I was trying to explain that, like, when I came out of prison, I had this expectation that my life was going to be exactly how it was when I left off, and that's not even close to the case. And so I have every spectrum of the emotion. I mean, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm happy, and like it's overwhelming emotions, because in a penitentiary you bottle everything up, you hold it in. I mean, it's extreme. So like once I got out, everything wants to come out, and I'm really not suited for society. You know, at that time I wasn't. This road trip has done me a lot of good, you know. So I wasn't ready to blend in with society. Like, I don't want to, so many people have been good to me, and I don't want to accidentally take out this pent up anger I have on people. So I kind of needed to back off. And like a lot of people take that the wrong way. They think that I'm being standoffish, or maybe I'm ungrateful or something. And that's absolutely not the case. It's just that I'm actually, in some weird way, I'm doing them a favor by not unloading all this that they don't deserve.
Well, nobody knows you better than you know you, right? And so you know that safety, and I think that is a dangerous thing, because I have a checkered past. Most of the audience probably knows that I have been to prison before in the state of Texas multiple times, and as a defense mechanism, you tend to who wants to sit in jail? I'll just say this: who wants to sit in jail and think about your woman in your life, your wife, your loved one, your girlfriend, whoever, every day, and just torture yourself thinking, well, what's she doing at home? I miss her so much. I love her. I care about her. Or think about how much I love my kids and how much they need me in their lives, and how, like, I don't want to sit in jail and torture myself with that. And nobody wants to do that. And then, as well as the predatory aspect of being vulnerable to the other inmates in prison, you don't want to give them this window into the weakness in your heart, because they will use that and exploit it and take advantage of it. And so we build these walls up around our hearts and kind of shut off the emotion from the outside. And because the only thing you can focus on, and especially sounds like in your situation, is getting through the day and surviving, not being the one getting stabbed and all that. And so It is a dangerous place to be. I think when you get in, you get back out into society, and you try to step back into life as you formerly knew it, like some sense of normalcy. What I've found is that I feel like something has been taken from me. Like I don't know what it is. It's tangibly, I can't explain what it is, but I do feel like, I talked to a pastor friend of mine, and he said like, I want to feel normal again. And he's like, Shane, that's like an idol that the devil has created. Especially like, and I feel like you've kind of lived a life similar to mine, but like normalcy is something that is like not really tangible, right? Like you can't, it's a myth. Like it's like smoke. You're trying to grab at it. And like, I don't know.
Agree.
And it's something that I'm in pursuit of now, maybe. And it's not something that maybe my life is not going to go back to normal. Maybe our lives will never be the same, which
it doesn't seem like it will. And, like throughout my life, I had a plan for my life. I thought that, when I retire, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend a year on the high seas. This is my plan. And so like, even though this new life could be better, I mean, but I don't know that, but it's still not what I spent the last several decades planning and dreaming of, so it's like,
what do they say, God, like if you tell him your plans, he'll just laugh at you and like, this is what your life is going to be like, Pete, don't worry about planning it.
Right. And like what you're talking about, like thinking on your past life and maybe some woman or just whatever it was that brought you happiness, you can't give that to the inmates. That's an absolute fact, and anybody that's ever done any time knows that. But it's also like the only sanity you can find in an environment like this. I mean, like everybody's stabbing each other, they're life flighting people out of here nonstop. It's constant danger. I mean, I vacillate between like, well, I don't really want to die in here, but back to you know what, it's probably going to happen. Let's just get it over with, And so like when you lay down in your bunk at night, like the only thing you can really focus on, the only thing you can do to bring sanity to this bizarro world that you're living in is to remember the good times you had. And like, it hurts more, you know what I mean? Because like you're clinging to it in a way that other people would never understand unless they've been in the situation.
I wonder if you're ever going to get back to
it. Had this not all gone the way it went, I would still have 10 more years of this, and 10 more years in the places that I've been, I may never have left, Or, I mean, they're
in pieces or whatever it was.
Right.
I was reading today I guess I was on Twitter and I was looking, the rapper Tory Lanez, who shot Megan Thee Stallion, he got stabbed in California Correctional Institute, and they took him off to the hospital off the yard and all that. But it is very real. And that's something, I'm passionate about justice reform. So I just think what we experience, and I know it's not only violence from the inmates, it's also violence from the guards. It's potential violence by the guards saying, like, say you wrote a grievance against, Officer Johnson, and he goes to the speaker for the white guys, which the speaker is the shot caller for the white gang members. And he would be like, hey, Pete's giving me a hard time. I want you guys to take care of that. Or until you do, I'm going to take 2 of your people to the hole every day until he's off this yard or whatever. And then now the officers put you in the crosshairs of a gang because it's business as usual. And so Pete's become a problem to the guards, and we got to take care of it because we want to be able to continue to get our packages in, cell phones, our drugs in, and all that. So it is more than, I used to say it was deliberate indifference by the guards. They kind of just allow things to go on in there, but it's also, there's a much more nefarious aspect to it where the guards are their own gang, and they kind of work hand in hand with the whole gang situation. Kind of makes their job easier to an extent, but it's a very unhealthy, like there should be no cooperation between the gangs and the police officers in the prison. Absolutely.
But it happens nonetheless. I mean, there shouldn't be, but I mean, that's definitely how it happens, Right. And I mean, it's the same thing. Like everybody is working. It's in this bizarre world. Everybody is working towards evil. You know what I mean? Like you go in there and in a normal situation, that the guy who messed his life up the worst would be the last guy you would listen to. But you go into prison and the guy who has 10 to 12 life sentences is like
the most bodies on his record.
Right. He's imparting the wisdom to everybody.
Like, this is backwards.
Yeah. And that people respect the most scumbag things that people do.
The
So,
most
like,
violent, the most
yeah, I mean, like people will do like a stabbing, you know, like they call it good stabbings or bad stabbings, you know, and like it'll be the most
as if any of them are good.
right, and it's never good, you know what I mean?
Right.
But that's the model of the penitentiary is that like it's good to stab somebody. It's good to do something the most scumbag.
Good
thing
job,
you
Pete.
can do.
Like, high
Right.
five.
Right. I mean that earns respect in the penitentiary. Like the worse you are, the higher your rank is in the penitentiary.
Well, I kind of want to transition back to not any kind of transitioning, but I want to kind of go back to before.
Get back in the closet.
Who were you? Who were you before January 6th? Who were you before January 6th? And like, who was, you know, Pete Schwartz prior to that? And then what do you? Yeah, I heard you got your case. You beat your case. I guess was it on appeal or?
Yeah, the appellate court.
So let's get into pre-January 6th and maybe some January 6th and like the legal battle afterwards for you beating your case.
I feel like I was pretty much middle America before January 6th. You know, I wasn't poor, wasn't wealthy.
Blue collar.
Yeah, I'm a welder. You know, I've worked at my trade for a long time. You know, had my troubles in life and stuff like this, but you know, I was making it, and I mean, I was doing fine, and I, you know, the older I've gotten, I finally learned enough in life how to, you know, navigate myself. Maybe I was a slow learner, but I finally came around and I got it together, and I was doing well for myself, you know, and I wasn't anything exceptional in any kind of way, you know. I mean, I was just, there's a lot of welders out there. There's a lot of blue collar workers. I wasn't doing anything exceptional. I was outspoken about my political beliefs, but because I wasn't exceptional, I didn't think anybody really listened to me, you know.
But you're an intelligent dude. That's one thing. He may not look real smart, but Pete is an intelligent guy. Looks can be deceiving. But another thing that I love about Pete is you won't meet anybody who understands the Word of God, the Bible, more than Pete Schwartz. And I always appreciated that about you and about your biblical beliefs and your accuracy on the Word of God. You're not with the prosperity doctrine or any of these other twisted, perverted versions of the Bible. You're very grounded in the Word of God and as it is written. And I appreciate it about that.
Well, that's because it changed my life. You know what I mean? And so, like, I feel like I read the Bible differently than other people do. Mm-hmm. Some people read it and, you know, they want some scriptures to throw at people and
pick and choose them. And,
for the most part, they want to use it as a weapon against people, you know. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was what changed my life. And
that's right.
So I read it like a drowning man, you know, reaching for a lifesaver. So it impacted me, and that's why I do understand it maybe a little better.
He is the lifesaver. He salvaged our destinies from busting the gates of hell wide open without a doubt. Like, my God, my life with Jesus and without Jesus is like two different ends of the spectrum.
Right. And it's easy for people to look at us and say, well, of course you guys needed saved, you know, Pete and Shane, right? But it really is everybody, you know. I mean,
no, for sure. Yeah.
People who aren't quite as out in the open about, you know, when we were bad, we were really bad. You know?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think that's something that, like, at my church, I go to Houston's First, and you know, I would say on average, the average family is probably like mom and dad graduated. Most people graduated from Texas A&M. Like, both of them have college degrees. You know, never been like, most of them been married one time. Like, you know, pretty standard. Like. But when they hear hear my testimony, they're like, "Man, you have a powerful testimony." And I'm like, "Well," they're like, "Well, yeah, they only had a speeding ticket ever in their life one time or something like that." And it's like, not so evident that they need Christ, but we really do. Like, the nature of man is fallen, whether it's little fallen or big fallen, like, it's the same.
It's a false sense of security for a lot of people, you know. I mean, in some ways, I guess I'm glad that I made the bad choices I made, because it would be easy for me to get arrogant and to think that, you know, I did this. Mm-hmm. I made my life go this way, you know what I mean? And I needed to be humbled and realize that, you know, I can't do it on my own.
That's right. We can't. But for the blood of Christ, that's the only way we can do it. So you were blue collar welder, and then, so had you always been really political? Like, for me, like, I got political because of the COVID lockdowns, and I lost my job in the oil field and early 2020, like February, March, they shut down the nation, and I went home from the oil field and was like, you're not coming back to work because They had the oil price war between OPEC and Russia, which eventually came OPEC Plus was what they wanted all along, but they cut half the price of oil in half overnight. And then like 2 weeks later, it was like COVID lockdowns, because COVID hit. But and that was really when I started to like want like the world, like our national political, all this stuff, and the lies that they were forcing on us with the vaccine and the, what was it called? It was a special status that you were able to work. Some people were selected to work. What was that called?
Essential workers.
Essential workers or not essential workers. But that really impacted my life, and I finally got off parole in 2019, just before the 2020 election, and was able to vote. So I did vote for Donald Trump for 2020 the first time. But had you always been political, or?
Not really. I mean, a lot of people that are close to me, like family and friends or whatever, were, and I really had very little interest in it. But 2015, when Trump first ran, and like the attitude about it changed, like they were viciously after this man, and I thought there's something to this, and I need to start investigating. And that's really when I started realizing that I always assumed that politicians are corrupt, you know what I mean, because everybody's on the take or whatever. But I wasn't aware until then the level of how corrupt they were, and that there was something behind the scenes going on, and these people are puppets, and it woke me up a lot, And so I'd say 2015 is the first time I ever had any emotional involvement in politics, and I started doing research, and that was the time they were starting censorship, so I feel like I got in ahead of the censorship and learned a few things, you know what I mean? And once you view it through that lens and understand how much they're lying to you, you just don't take anything for face value. So
like Operation Mockingbird, they use the media as a megaphone to blast out whatever their narrative is that they want the American people to digest. And I read William Cooper, I guess probably on the way to prison in like 2001, his book, Behold a Pale Horse. And that really kind of started to open my eyes and to see like, and that's the problem with me is like, once you acknowledge that these people will lie to you about the Russia collusion hoax or the phone call with Zelensky or the Charlottesville hoax or whatever it is, like you see how they manipulate, take things out of context, edit it down to where it's just they can make it look like a lot of number thing. And then you get 1,000 different media outlets promoting the same crap. It's like, now I'm like, well, what else did they lie about? The moon landing? What's going on in Antarctica? Is QAnon real? Is what's going on? Like, I don't know where, like, it makes me wonder where the baseline of truth is. And like, I think the word of God is the truth. And it lets me know, well, these people are like, I feel like we're watching a fake football game. It's Republicans versus Democrats. And it's like this fight that's going on and nothing really ever changes. And it's like, we keep getting further into debt. And it's like, what is going on? Like, nothing is happening. I think I was thinking about it today. I was like, what has Congress done since Trump has been in office?
You're right. My dad always says it's like watching the Harlem Globetrotters. They play the Washington Generals, and
that's a good analogy.
It is. Yeah. I mean, every time you got the same people are going to win, which is always going to be the Democrats, and you got the Republicans who their skill is losing, but they're receiving a paycheck from the same people.
And we're the ones getting screwed every time.
Every time.
We're the only ones that really lose.
Right, because we're buying tickets to go watch this.
We're cheering for one team, the other people are cheering for like
right. But we're all contributing.
We're all losing
to our own demise.
Even the people cheering for the Democrats, they're still losing.
Absolutely.
And they don't even realize it. They're like,
right. I like to feel like we at least know we're losing.
Which makes it worse.
Right.
We're getting it in the rear end. And we know it. We're like, you guys are just oblivious and don't know it.
Right. I hope these parties break up, and I hope it splits. I think the Republican party, the Democrat parties, I think it's essentially done. Yeah. So I really hope that it boils down to Republicans, which I'm just going to call rhinos for realism. Because they are rhinos, and then we have MAGA. And I would think that at this point going forward, because so many Democrats have switched, they voted for Trump and this and that. They're still not exactly on our side, but they realize they're jumping off a sinking ship. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, they see which boat's rising, and they're like, MAGA is ascendant right now. We're going up.
They're used to winning.
So I want to take a second, and these guys, Scott Fairlamb hasn't been on the show yet, but he is going to come on. I just want to encourage everybody, if you haven't gone on Amazon, look for Reforged, A Patriot's Long Journey Home. This is written, it's Scott Fairlamb's story, but it's written by Joe Reyes. Please go online and check that out if you can. And then also, my buddy, we had them on, Rob Morris and Kelly Meggs. It's One Question Remains, Your Move by Kelly Meggs and Robert Morris. But if you guys would go out and support those guys, those are January 6th men who I'm personally friends with and close to, and people that I absolutely support. I wouldn't, and if you ask me personally, if you DM me, if you have questions, should I support this person or that one? I'm not going to blast it out there on the internet, but if you ask me, I'll give you my honest opinion about who I would support and who I would not support.
And Scott Fairlamb is a really good brother with a really good heart.
Yeah.
And he's going through a lot of personal issues and battling some medical issues.
Surgery, had a death in the family,
yeah, and he could really use the help on top of being a good book. So I also support that.
So what happened January 6th? How did you end up at the Capitol? What was I need to go to DC for January 6th? What? We all have a story, right?
Right, for sure. Mine was a little less interesting than everybody else's. It was just that I always wanted to see a Trump speech, and since I travel for work, I'm a traveling welder and stuff like that. I was never in the right place at the right time to go see one. And my parents had gone and they're like, you would really enjoy it. I mean, because I watched it on TV and I guess it just doesn't capture the experience,
Mm-hmm.
And so I just coincidentally happened to be in the same area. I was working in Pennsylvania at the time. If you listen to the liberal media, they tell you that I live in Pennsylvania, but that's not true. But I mean, that's one amongst many details that they get wrong.
Slandered you, called you a Pennsylvania,
right? I'm not a Pennsylvanian, right? Never would I ever, right? But
you're from San Francisco. Wait,
I just happened to be in that part of the country, and I was for sure that this was going to be a historic speech, and it turns out it was, but not for the reasons I thought it was going to be.
4 years later,
I feel like most people, because I sat through the whole speech. There's a separate set of January 6ers that were already down there starting a riot because they miscalculated. And so they didn't know that Trump started an hour late. So an hour and a half before it, they're already starting a riot. They're all dressed in.
They already stormed the Capitol before the speech was even over.
Right. Congress was in recess by the time I even showed up on the grounds, because to people who don't know, that the ellipse where Trump's speech was is 1.5 miles away from the Capitol. And so it's a good half-hour walk. I mean, in a crowd like that, I could probably
shoulder to shoulder crowd.
Right. Yeah, and, everybody's at a different pace and stuff. So when we went there, we were under the impression that there's these two pastors, that one of them, he has a church that's 4 blocks from my parents' house in Owensboro, Kentucky. And his name's Brian Gibson. And he and this guy named Greg Locke is a pastor out of Nashville, Tennessee. And, they've made some prophecies and stuff like this. And we're interested in what they wanted to say. And they had a pass. They had bought the rights to speak on that day, right? And we were expecting to see them. That
at
was
the Capitol.
At the Capitol.
So that was I did an interview that I can remember the name, but Mike Pompeo was supposed to headline the speakers at the Capitol. I guess amongst those other speakers.
Yeah,
people don't realize that there was a second slate of potential speakers that were going to speak at the steps of the Capitol or somewhere at the Capitol.
They all had permits and everything. So I mean, it wasn't just a spontaneous thing. These people had purchased permits. They'd advertised it online, and this is one of the things we were expecting to see. So when Trump said, go down and have your voices peacefully heard, and this and that, peacefully and patriotically. This was something that was this is an added thing. We're going to see the other event. You know what I mean? And so I was fully expecting, because the environment at the Trump rally, I don't like to use the word spiritual, but I really felt like it was almost a spiritual environment. I've been to a lot of concerts and stuff like this. I've been to many large gatherings, right? And I've never just felt a positive energy. Wall Street executives, questionable people, everybody's just getting along because everybody's everybody's in the same interest. They have the same values, or at least mostly the same values, you know. And it was just positive. People are, oh, where are you from? You know, I mean,
that's what I tell people. It was like a praise and worship concert. People were singing, praying, dancing, like laughing. It was a good, like nothing I'd ever really encountered.
It was amazing. And on top of just all of that, it was the largest gathering I've ever seen. There was over 1 million people there.
Right.
And
easy, yeah.
So I really didn't take a lot of video initially, but I did want to say, because, you know, at that time, you know, the media was trying to make it sound like there wasn't very many supporters for Trump and this and that. And so I did take some video that I'd hold my phone up, and it's as far as you can see, a sea of people this way, a sea of people that way,
right.
Any direction you know, It's like being in the middle of the ocean, except it's people, you know.
Right.
It's incredible, right? So when we got down to the Capitol, I was surprised and I was confused by what was going on down there, because all of a sudden there's people running out, and there's people with bullhorns and agitators, and like I was confused by it. I mean, it was a radical change of environment, you know. So,
I mean, and Marie said it seemed like a divine appointment, like you were called there. Like, and I feel like I felt like I was called to be there for whatever reason. But so did you have questions about the election, like the 2020 election? Did you feel like it was stolen, manipulated? What did you feel like?
I wouldn't say I had questions. I mean, I would say that I was pretty positive that it had been stolen. You know?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, because I watched all these hearings in Pennsylvania, and like some of these people's resume was mind blowing. You know, I mean, like these are not your average citizens. I mean, these are like generals and like outstanding people who have accomplished more in life than any 10 of us will in a normal lifetime. Right. You know, and they're not up there willing to slander their reputation over something like this.
And they were testifying to the fact that it had been manipulated.
Absolutely. Stolen. I mean, these people are not willing to risk their lifetime accomplishments to get up there and say something about a stolen election.
For Donald Trump or for whatever.
Yeah. I was blown away by it. And so I investigated a lot into it, you know, and I started checking into stuff, and I'm positive it was stolen. I mean, lots of elections probably are. I think one of the weaknesses that I'm guilty of, and probably most of us are guilty of, is that we haven't been watching these local elections. And I mean, that's the roots of the tree. So by the time they get up, you know, by the time you reach the top of the tree, obviously they're stealing elections, because that's how they started off, you know.
It's a selection, not an election.
Right. That's a fact. So I really expected when I went there that day, and the reason I believed it was going to be historic is that I thought, and I feel like a lot of people, because I did talk to a lot of people, and I can't speak for the whole 1 million people, but I can speak for the people that I spoke to, which was quite a few people. And I felt like we all believed that Donald Trump was going to give us a little scolding and tell us how close we got to having the election stolen, and that we need to pay better attention and watch the local elections. That's what we believed was going to happen, you know? And then, so I thought that was going to be historic, you know, like the election almost got stolen, got saved at the last moment, you know?
Did you think they were going to send it back to the states for an investigation?
Absolutely. Because I believed that Mike Pence was on Trump's team, you know?
Right. Yeah. We believe Judas Pence was on our team.
Right.
Pence. The thing too, that was for me was my goal for being there was voicing my First Amendment right, whatever, to protest, but also with the states, especially the swing states that had very small margin. And I think there was, I don't know, 5 of them that were like between 8 and like 15,000 votes, which in a national election is a very small margin for those states with millions and millions of people in them. So I would imagine that they would have at least done their due diligence, like they owe it to the American people. If there is any doubt regarding an election, I believe you owe it to the people to send it back to the states, let them conduct, even if it's a sham 10-day investigation.
Right. I mean, it's not going to change the history, you know?
No.
And I do feel like January 6th, even people who are supporters and supposedly on our side, they're still confused about to what really happened that day. And I mean, aside from the whole Fed entrapment scheme and all this, I feel like it was a design, and I don't feel like the design was ever to stop the certification. I believe it was to stop the objections to the certification.
Right. They staged a riot to cover up the objections to shut it down.
It actually did work because
Mhm.
in the history of our country, I think there's been objections twice before this, and it was one objection each time. And so this time there were 16 people who objected to the certification, and then there were several rhinos who said that they were going to until the riot happened, which.
Right.
I don't know how you come up with that, because if this is what you believe, then that's what you should do.
It didn't matter what happened.
It shouldn't matter what a bunch of citizens, whether they're nefarious or not, did.
Right.
I mean, if this is what you believe and you're representing the people, continue with your objection.
Let us know you weren't that committed to it to begin with. Like, it was like,
right.
Were you that serious about it, or?
Well, it raises the question of maybe they just wanted to ride both sides of the fence. Maybe they never were going to object.
Maybe it looked good.
Right. Maybe they just wanted to play both sides of the fence, and say that, oh yeah, I was going to object.
Do you think Tom Tillis voted to certify the election that day?
I would guess
Senator
not.
From North Carolina. I think this is our Senator Tom Tillis's political career right here. It's dead on arrival. And we're going to hang that MAGA hat on Tom Tillis's political career because we have a video. If you guys would like to watch it real quick, if you can play that for us, Maurice. Producer Maurice. This is my roommate producer, Maurice. He's a IT guy by day, and I have given him a hard time about some things of his sexual orientation, but I want everybody to know that he is straight. He's very straight, man. He is single as well.
Key battle.
There you go. His boyfriend's gay.
He sided with the system. Tillis called it respecting the process, but the process was hijacked by big tech giants, rogue judges, and corrupt election officials.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's with a heavy heart that I hear the vile accusations and the anger levied against me for what I did to serve the people of Mesa County.
Senator Tillis posted on X that he was heartbroken over the death of Officer Brian Sicknick, but that was a lie.
For those who know that Tom Tillis was one of the main objectors to Ed Martin being certified as the DC attorney, prosecutor in charge.
No chemical damage.
Also,
no connection to
propagated the lie that Brian Sicknick died as a result of actions on January 6th, which is fake news.
A scripted narrative for impeachment and propaganda, and Tillis helped spread it. He promoted a falsehood that criminalized patriots, while peaceful protesters were jailed, not for their crimes, but for daring to question the regime. Tillis was silent as grandmothers were sentenced, veterans locked away, and American citizens were crushed under a politicized DOJ. It came Ed Martin, a man unafraid to speak the truth, a man who stood with the J6 prisoners, who would expose the injustice and demand accountability. And Tom Tillis, he led the charge to kill Martin's nomination as U.S. attorney because Martin was in their way. Tom Tillis didn't complain about criminals being confirmed like Matthew Graves, Merrick Garland, or Alejandro Mayorkas. But Ed Martin was too honest for Washington, and that's exactly why Tillis and the Uniparty had to stop him. Trump said it himself. He's terrific.
He's a terrific person.
We'll find another role.
Hopefully we can bring him into, whether it's DOJ or whatever, in some capacity, because really outstanding.
But the damage was done. Tom Tillis isn't just weak. He's complicit in the lies, in the cover-ups, in the persecution and torture of Americans who stood for the truth. Tillis had a choice, stand for justice or kneel to power. He chose the swamp. He chose the lie.
So that's brought to you by Stop Hate and Condemned USA. Those are January 6th advocate organizations that we support. But yeah, so, basically Tom Tillis, along with the usual, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, some other people, of course, stabbed MAGA in the back as per usual and didn't want Ed Martin in as the head prosecutor in the DC swamp because he's going to be the one to uncover all the corruption and all that and prosecute all of it. So he said he objected to that because of Ed Martin's beliefs in regards to January 6th. He was more sympathetic to January 6th people than he cared for My thing was, though, Trump appointed Judge Jeanine Pirro, who is also sympathetic to January 6 people and says many of the same things. It was a Fedsurrection, this, that, or the other, staged riot, whatever you want to call it. But Tom Tillis came out and said, I support Judge Jeanine Pirro when she has the same beliefs as Ed Martin. And so I am willing to offer treasure, which is my money and time and effort, to see that Tom Tillis, the senator from North Carolina, is primaried in North Carolina. And somebody is running in North Carolina. I believe his name is Dan Brown, but we would like to support him, as well as in Texas, we have John Cornyn, who needs to go. Thune needs to go. McConnell needs to go. Susan Collins needs to go. Lisa Murkowski needs to go. Look, those are Maine and Alaska. I don't know where Thune is from, but it's just there's too many uniparty, rhino, anti-MAGA, anti-American people, and still in the Senate. And I believe they've gotten fat off of that deep state money, and it's just time for some fresh blood in there. So if you guys would support Dan Brown for North Carolina, that would be awesome. And so you said you were going to see the pastors speak at the Capitol, and then kind of lay it out from there if you want, or go into as little or as much detail as you want. Or you can go over to the legal aspects of it, or whatever you want to do.
Well, all right. I'll try to keep it brief, because I mean there's a lot to the story.
Yeah, absolutely. We can talk for hours for sure.
Right. But the heart of it is that when we first approached the Capitol, I was with my then wife at that time. And when we first approached the Capitol, we were confused by what's going on. So we couldn't see because we weren't close enough to the conflict to see.
And it was packed in there. Right?
It was absolutely packed. And
like
more
standing
people,
room only concert type.
And more people just kept flooding in from behind. So we're like getting scooted forward unwillingly, you know what I mean? Right. And so I couldn't see what was going on. So she's like, well, I'll just hold my phone up and video it. And so the very first video she took at that point, at 59 seconds, a sting ball grenade buzzed her hair. And we realized we're under attack. And I'm totally confused.
Like a 30 millimeter breakover, boom, like a
absolutely
launched munition, flashbang, something like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And they're shooting, they're launching all types of munitions, the sting balls, the CS gas, and all this. And the crowd's panicking for good reason, I mean, because there's the conflict at the front, and then they're launching all their munitions over into the peaceful
So what is
crowd.
that doing to the crowd? Pushing them forward into the
right. People are trying to get away from it. I don't know if people have ever experienced CS gas. Anybody that's been in the military, it's part of your basic training.
Prison
and prison, right? But it's brutal. I mean, it hurts to breathe. You can't breathe. So, I mean, your natural reaction, anybody's natural reaction, is to get away from it. And so maybe not all million are experiencing this, but it's a crowd of a million. They're all pressing forward because everybody's still filing in. Nobody knows what's going on. Right. So they're just trying to get to the front and see what's happening. And at this point, the crowd is like very adamantly trying to move forward, move away from it, and it's coming from random places, random times. We were attacked for 20 minutes before they broke the police line, which is, they count that as an assault on democracy. But in truth,
one question, it was another thing that Tom Tillis said. He said he felt like anybody who trespassed January 6th deserved between 3 months and 3 years in prison. And so in your approach to the Capitol, did you see ski fencing? Did you see bike racks? Did you see anything like that? Because when I got there, all that stuff was already gone. They were already on the list.
I never saw one of it. Like, like I said earlier, when I was talking about how there was a separate set of Gen 6ers or whatever you'd like to call them that had already agitated.
Maybe, BLM.
Feds, all of it, right?
Federal informants, whatever.
Right. Assets, whatever name you want to use for it.
Right.
These were the people who brought this on us. These were it boils down to two categories. You have the entrappers and you have the entrapped. And these people had already done this. So by the time we showed up, I never saw any signs. I never heard any audio. And January 6th is not, the Capitol has never been off limits on any other
people's house, right?
Yeah. I mean, everybody has gone to the Capitol on January 6th. I mean, maybe they're supportive in different years, but it's never been off limits. So No, none of us would have known that at that time.
It has never been criminalized, basically. Like you should,
Right.
whether you agree with what's going on inside the Capitol, it's never been illegal for you to be on Capitol grounds, except for that day.
And regardless, it's trespassing.
Right.
I mean,
The 3 months in jail for trespassing is way too much.
outrageous.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
A ticket, a fine, go to
I
jail,
mean,
get out, whatever.
I think anything over a $75 fine is outrageous for trespassing.
Right.
Especially if no crime was committed,
Yeah, absolutely.
So I never entered the building, and that's what I got 14 years and 2 months for.
Because
so-
you didn't enter the building?
Well, they said that I just obstructed an official proceeding, and like I stated,
But it was already
earlier,
closed before you got there, right?
they were already in recess before I showed up on the grounds. And what they used to convict me is I had sent a spam or like a survey text from Ted Cruz or his people, probably not from him himself, I'm sure,
Yeah.
that said, hey, it's Ted Cruz, and I'm going to object to the certification. This was January 4th. He said, I'm going to object to the certification of the 2020 election. Do you support me? And I responded with 2 words, yes, sir. And right.
Hell yeah.
Right. And they used that as a motive that I showed up to the Capitol that
You
day.
promoted an insurrection, sir.
Absolutely. I mean, the charges are ridiculous, but one of the things is when I got arrested and how I ended up beating my charges is my lawyers, you had the same lawyers, I believe.
Didn't spoil, yeah.
Right. In
Blarina
sorry, yeah. And we found 24 legitimate issues in the trial that would have negated every charge to begin with. But because you're limited on the space and the amount of words you're allowed to use in your appeals, we decided to go with 4 that we
The
thought
best
would win.
ones, yeah, the
Right.
strongest ones, yeah.
And we did win. I mean, they had confiscated my phone illegally. They had illegally paired me with co-defendants that I didn't know. They had charged me with a 1512 when I didn't enter the building. That was another one. And I believe the last issue was I don't think we used the change of venue, which would have been a good one.
I did that one, yeah.
Did you?
Well, I asked for a bench trial, and he denied me the bench trial and made me take a jury trial, which is unheard of.
Right.
And you had Judge Meta as well. I had Judge Meta as
Absolutely. I mean, we almost had the same walk through a lot of this, you know what I mean?
well. From the same jail, same bus ride, same lawyers, same
Right.
prosecutor, like,
Same jail cells, same lawyers, all of that, right?
same haircut.
We do have the same haircut.
He's better than I am,
I would
but
never fit in that
everything
hat,
else
though.
is-
My head's not that large, you know. Did you special order that thing?
so you didn't do very much time in jail then because you overturned your case, right?
That would be a great story, right? that would be.
So when did you overturn your case? Then? I guess is the proper question.
Well, they dragged my appeal out, and so the way the appellate process normally works is at your sentencing, you're allowed 14 days to file your notice of appeal, and then from that point, as soon as you file it, which I filed the same day as it, you have 30 days to order and pay for your trial transcripts, and then at that point, they set you a schedule, which would usually be like you have 60 days to file your briefs and say what your issues are and what you think is wrong with the trial. And then they would give the prosecution another 60 days to respond with why they think the trial was fine. And then you get one last shot in maybe 2 weeks and you can rebut whatever the prosecution said. They just refused to set a schedule for a year and a half.
Just dragging you.
Yeah. So I hold the record in the 4th district for the most delayed appeal process.
Well, you know, it's kind of par for the course for January 6th. Like, and not that, you mean, you mentioned earlier they threw you on a trial together with not even anybody that you knew before. They put you in a trial with these people that you've never met before, that you were only in the various like proximity to these people, not even engaged necessarily in the same acts to coordinated like at all, just in the same proximity. But for me, like even when I had the 1512 too, was found guilty of that, the Supreme Court overturned that and they refused to dismiss it. They never took it off my sentencing. Like it never came off, which would have lowered the points and adjusted my sentence and all those things. They refused. They basically slow booked or just delayed it indefinitely.
Right, which is fantastic because at that point it was the Fisher case,
Mm.
and they were fully aware that Fisher was the third one
Mm.
to try to overturn the 1512. But the two people before it had muddy waters around them. So the Supreme Court, are you aware of this?
Yeah. Well, I know one of the individuals, but
Jake and Garrett.
okay.
And so there's a lot of muddy water around it.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of muddy water around it. So Fisher had a clean case. I mean, he's a former police officer or current police officer. I'm not sure what. But either way, they overturned the case. So at that point, they realized that everybody charged with this. And a lot, not myself, not you, but a lot of other people were charged with a couple misdemeanors and the 1512.
Yeah,
right?
only that. Yeah.
Right. So you're doing like 10, 20 years, And
20 years based upon that single charge.
On that one charge, right? So at that point, they know that you shouldn't be in prison.
Right. Especially if you just have the misdemeanors and that one major charge.
Absolutely. So, I mean, they should have opened the door right then, but it didn't happen that way. It was still another year and a year and a half, maybe.
It's still a weaponized justice system.
Because even though they know that you're not guilty of that charge and that's the improper charge, they should release you at that point, but they're not going to, you still have to file your claim to that win, You
still got to get your lawyer to go, hey, why am I not out? They got to file a motion, then it could take weeks to get that heard, and then they have an opportunity to respond and back.
And this process is so brutal that so many people by this point, they've lost their homes, they've lost their family, they're out of money,
gone through divorces.
They've gone through divorces. Even their family is broke from trying to support them for these lawyers and stuff. So this win's coming to them, but all of a sudden now it's a money issue that maybe you can't afford to get this win. You know what I mean? Like, even though you rightfully have it coming to you, they know you have it coming
to you. Your lawyer's not going to file that motion for free.
Absolutely not. I mean, you're usually talking somewhere in the area of like $20,000 to $40,000 to file an appeal like this.
Right.
I mean, because it's serious stuff. It's a lot of work, I mean, you have to word it right. You have one period, one word stated wrong, they'll dismiss your entire appeal. I mean, so
and you only get one shot at it.
You get one shot, and this is to save your life. I mean, so it's critical stuff. So you don't want to go with the cheap public defender,
right?
The Washington Generals against Harlem Globetrotters. You know what I mean?
So you filed your appeal, cost out of money, like a lot of money. How and you finally it got delayed, but when did it go through? Like that they said, you're right, we were wrong. You're right, Pete. What do we need to do?
Well, as it turns out, they held my. They knew that I was going to win this, so they decided to go to an oral argument, which is basically just a formality.
Another step in the process to drag it out further.
Absolutely. So they scheduled my oral argument for exactly 1 week to the day after Trump's election. So, and then
after the election,
after
so
the election,
November 12th.
Okay, it was the 12th because the election was on the 5th this year, or last year.
Okay,
and so it was on the 12th. So then they held off making the decision until
they had the hearing. Then they got how long to answer? 90 days or something like that?
There's no time frame for these things. These people are not they're not bound by any kind of law. You know what I mean?
When we get to it.
Right. They rule the land.
Meanwhile, you're in stabbing mode and like trying to survive in prison.
Right. And it's rules for thee, not for me,
Right.
So they finally gave me the win on January 17th. And Trump got in office in the 20th. But the 17th was a Friday. And so everybody's out of session. And Monday, when Trump was getting inaugurated, and everybody knew that he was going to pardon the January 6ers, and I had no way of knowing that I had already won my case. I didn't know till 3 or 4 days after I got out.
Oh, God. So you got out on appeal?
Well, no, I got out on the
pardon. You got out on the
pardon.
Yeah,
I got out on the pardon.
My bad, I misspoke.
Right. But then later I learned. I was just... Anyway, that door opened. I was ready.
This is a pardon. I'm going to stay. I'm going to wait for my appeal to go through.
Right. I was ready to climb the wall. So I mean, I was like, if Trump doesn't pardon us, I'm jumping the fence.
Side note: I always thought, like when I was in the DC jail, I was like, what would make this like as if January 6th wasn't big enough? I was like, what if we broke out of the DC jail and went on the run? And I was like, how big of a, you had like the Texas 7, they escaped from Texas prisons, and is they labeled as domestic terrorists, and we're the worst thing ever. Like Jeffrey Dahmer had nothing on us, and all these things. Like imagine if we'd broken out of the DC jail.
But I mean, that's the media narrative because we were locked up with these people and they're a bunch of softies. We wouldn't have made it very far. You know?
We would not have
Somebody
anymore.
needs their nails done or something. You know?
I'm going into town to get a petty mani.
Right. I can't live this way.
That's right. Chris Worrell couldn't live without the cold slaw, so he's got to
Right.
turn himself in.
Is this gluten free?
It's Quaglin, yeah. Poor Quaglin. I love Chris Quaglin. I love you, man, but you'll always be Quag Fag to me. So so let's backtrack a little bit. What was it like for you in prison? I mean, I think about the days that are impactful to me. You know, it's when I think about this, like election night on the 5th of November. What was that like for you? Was anything going on around? Like, what was that emotional, stressful? Did you stay up and listen to it, or what was going on?
Well, I would say so. The Thursday before the pardons, in the penitentiary, there's a 3 stabbing rule. Like you're allowed to stab 3 people per day before you go on lockdown.
Serious?
I'm
This is
definitely
not
being
a joke.
serious. Yeah, I'm definitely being serious.
3 stabbings, you're over the limit.
Right.
2, you're in the danger zone. 3, it's over the limit.
Two's cool, you know. I mean, to them, you know,
Two's
it's not
tolerant.
stabbings aren't cool. I
No.
mean, but
We say this in jest, but
right, but it's really not cool. It's a very dangerous place.
traumatic. It's
so-
watching it or being stabbed or forced into doing stabbing somebody. Like that's not
Right.
It's not-
And so on that Thursday, on the 3rd stabbing of the day, you know, we were out in the yard and stuff, and they shoot the guns off, and everybody's getting down, and they're shooting people with the salt,
non-lethal
and stuff like that, and the bean bags and everything, and they're gunning a lot of people down. And so as soon as they call it the deuces when it goes off like that, yeah. So as soon as the deuces were cleared and everybody's able to, they want you to lay on your stomach and stuff. And as soon as they said it's clear, everybody can get back up. 3 more stabbings happened.
Oh,
so we were on lockdown when it happened. And shockingly, in prison, you would expect it to be a lot of Democrats, but everybody in there by this point had basically converted to Trump supporters. A lot of them were when I showed up, and by the time I left, a lot more were.
He was the only one that really did anything for the federal states, like with the First Step Act and some Second Chance Act. I don't know if that's passed yet, but like he's the only one that ever. They always talked about it, but he was the only one that ever really implemented anything. People,
yeah, I mean,
people appreciate that when you keep your word. Shocker, like when you do what you say you're
right,
going to do.
because
People,
most politicians get in there and they don't do what they say, and people still support them. Now Trump gets in there and keeps his word, and everybody's mad at him. It makes no sense, right?
like, how dare you broke the cycle? Like, what are you doing?
Right. But on the day I left, it was an emotional day for me. So to people who have never been in a situation like this, there's several TVs, and it's very racially motivated. Like there's a white TV, a black TV, and this and that.
Yeah. Better
And
not touch the wrong racist TV.
Oh, right.
Can you
People will
change
die
that
over
for
that.
me? Like, oh,
Yeah, people die over that type of thing.
absolutely.
And it's a closed circuit television, so there's no sound. So the TVs are all on one wall, and you have to tune your radio in to hear what
To
you're
that
gonna listen
station,
to.
yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so when Trump came on and he gave his inauguration speech and stuff, you know, and he signed a bunch of executive orders. The January 6th pardons were not in the first signing. He did 3 signings that day, and like everybody in there was heartbroken for me.
Yeah.
So they just changed the channel because they were so disappointed. They thought Trump didn't keep his word, right?
Yeah.
And I tuned in. We have a conservative radio channel there,
Mhm.
and me and my cellmate, we were on lockdown and stuff. So I tuned into that, and I listened, and you know they were kind of beating around the bush because a lot of these conservative talking heads aren't necessarily who people think they are.
Right.
And so they covered a lot of issues.
Rhino can, talk to
Absolutely,
us,
you
yeah.
know. Controlled opposition is a good word
Yeah.
for it.
Violence is never the answer. Like
Sometimes it is.
Sometimes it's the only answer.
Right. I mean, tell our forefathers that.
Yeah.
They'd
We
probably-
wouldn't have a country if
they'd
violence
probably-
wasn't the answer.
They would
Like,
probably slap you for saying that.
why do we go to war? Why do we go to war? Afghanistan, Iraq, if violence is never the answer. Why do we have a military?
Right. I mean, it's not something we should desire to do, but I mean,
Right.
sometimes it's the only option. So
Absolutely.
I heard it on the radio at 6:00, and I was like, that's incredible, you know. And
That he pardoned the
Yeah.
Genesis.
and
All
he,
genuine.
he said he signed the pardons, you know what I mean? And of course, you know, I'm deep into a maximum security prison, and I thought of everything that could go wrong. You know, maybe he spelled my name wrong. You know, I mean,
You're over the weight limit because you're too fat.
right. Well, actually, I had lost a lot of weight by that time, so I thought maybe I don't look like my ID. You know?
This clearly is not you.
Right. I'm not getting out, right? So by 8 o'clock, they pulled me out of the cell, you know, and they're like, pack it up, you know. And I'm like, for what? You know?
Like, quit playing with me.
Yeah, I'm like, don't kid with me. I mean, because I had every emotion invested in this, you know.
Right.
And they're like, come on. And they take me up front, and they're like, we know you're getting out, but we haven't seen your name on the list. I'm like, I knew it. I knew it. And they said, but they're releasing the names slowly, and we're pretty sure you're going to be on the list. I'm like, all right, I'm sweating. I mean, I'm in a cold air conditioner, and I am sweaty. You know? And they make a few phone calls and this and that, and they got me up in the office, and several of these COs are like, well, when you get out and you get famous, please don't mention our names. I'm like, first thing I'm like,
who were they? What was their names?
Vanessa Vega. I have a list. Right.
It's the dead man switch.
Right. So they're, you know, they knew it was going to happen, and it did. They're like, you know what? Their name's on the list, you know. Go get your stuff. And I went back in there. The entire prison, we were on lockdown, went crazy. They were lighting stuff on fire. They're like, we love Pete. We love Trump. They're kicking the doors. I mean, it was a glorious moment in my life. You know what I mean? Like, and everybody's wanting to talk to me. And I'm like, I gotta go.
I gotta go. Sorry,
I gotta go. You know, I love you, call you, you know, whatever. I don't know. Can't call you. Okay, you're in prison. I'll see you. Gotta go. And by 10 o'clock, I was standing on the street, you know, so
that's crazy.
One of the most amazing moments in my life.
A real moment, like when they opened the gate and they're like, "Did you
Yeah.
have somebody there to pick you up?"
Yeah.
Where were you at?
I was in I got released from USP Atwater, which is in California. It's in between Fresno and San Francisco. California. But when I got out, I don't believe that. It's like everything I saw, there are a bunch of farmers out there, you know, they have apple trees and grape orchards and vineyards and all that stuff. Everywhere you go, there's like trucks. Like, there are more flagrant Trump supporters than I see in Kentucky, which is absolutely a red state.
That's what I hear a lot of people from California. You would be surprised, like, how many people are Trump supporters.
Every truck driving by has like two flags, an American flag and a Trump flag flying from the back of it. You know, I mean, like, they're stealing elections there. I mean, just like they do everywhere, you know. I mean,
I forgot. I know back on Tom Tillis for a second, but they called him Commie Tommy. When he said California, I was like, Commie Tom Tillis, there's your political order. It's for you, buddy. But also, you got out. Did you say you did have somebody there? Or you didn't have it?
Yeah, somebody picked me up. It was a supporter, you know, put me up in the Airbnb. I mean, I was treated very well. It was very hard for me at that time, you know, because I mean, I'm just coming out of a
war zone.
Yeah,
like a war zone.
War zone, you know?
Yeah, for real.
And I needed that little time there in the Airbnb to kind of decompress and just breathe.
I didn't sleep for the 36 hours. I was like, I couldn't wrap my mind around where I was at and where I was. It wasn't like you've got a release date 6 months down the road and then you're going up to it. It was like, hey, get out. You got to go. Like, you got to go home, but you can't stay here. Get out.
I mean, I was not fit for society at that point. You know, I went into a gas station to buy a drink and stuff. And like, I don't even know how to operate money. You know, I don't know like what it cost, and they expect me to have known the price for it. And I'm freaked out, you know, and like everybody's looking at me crazy and I'm looking at them crazy. You know, I mean, it's a very weird experience.
Yeah. 7 o'clock. Keep going, he said. So what'd you get to drink? What was your first meal? What'd you drink?
I ate at the In-N-Out, you know.
Okay.
And Actually, that was kind of cool. Cat Turd's pretty famous on the internet.
Yeah.
Posted a picture of me, and like it went so viral that like some of my friends, like from my childhood that I hadn't talked to in 40, 50 years,
Okay.
contacted me, and they're like, a lot of people didn't know.
They didn't know you were out.
They didn't know I was in.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
man, like they kidnapped. Well, that's what a lot of people don't realize is like we got kidnapped by the feds. Like it was like a drag kicking and screaming off. And the way the DC jail was set up, they couldn't even look us up on the DC website. You couldn't, like, usually you can go, like, we're in Harris County. You can go to harriscounty.com or Harris County Sheriff's Department and look somebody up and say,
Right.
But I mean, that is crazy to think that people like don't even know where you were. You got disappeared. Let's talk about this guy, Abrego Garcia. He got disappeared to El Salvador. He's an MS-13, but you're a citizen of the United States.
Right. And one thing I will say, though, is because I travel for work so much, a lot of people are used to losing contact with me.
Right.
So they didn't know that this happened to me. Because it's not uncommon for me to be 7 states away. Yeah. Right. So a lot of people were shocked when all this came out,
We're like, damn, I could have used a letter.
Right. Several people that did know tried to write me letters, and I feel like it was very selective on how they blocked my mail. And like people looked me up, tried to write me letters, got them returned to them, and I never heard from them. And I was kind of skeptical. I'm like, did you really?
Yeah. Did you really write? Like,
and they showed me
I sent you $300. Like, did you really?
Right. Right. I mean,
we're even, right? Like, no.
Right. Remember that money I owed you? I paid you back. I don't think so. I never got that.
So you got out. We've been out, what, I don't know, 110 days or so now. You got to see mom and dad are still living, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
How are they? I know we still always talk
They're
about
doing
them.
great. I love my parents, and this was very hard on them,
Yeah,
like when I first came, like my mother knew that I was released, my parents are still married, 56 years this year. And my mother knew I was released, but because I got stuck there in California and I had trouble getting on the plane with no ID and this and that, she knew I'd make it home, but I wanted to surprise her when, and so when I first saw my mom, she looked really aged, right? But within 3 days of me being home, like she snapped back to the mom I knew.
Yeah, she was in a slump for you. That's beautiful. Well, shout out to Mrs. Schwartz. Yesterday was Mother's Day. I didn't really. I got my mom's urn is up there on the top shelf, and it's like, yeah, no, it was a challenging day yesterday, just knowing that she didn't get to see. I mean, she did get to see me get out and all that from heaven, but I just wish she could have been here because she's actually the one that like kind of motivated me to support Donald Trump. She used to love Donald Trump from the Celebrity Apprentice and You're Fired and all that stuff. She loved it. She was probably more of an old school Democrat, I would say. But I feel like she definitely would have voted for.
Well, the old school Democrat is today's Republican.
Yeah, really, which is weird.
And I've known you for a long time. We've gotten close, and I know that your mother is absolutely the motivating factor in your life, and I really am sorry for that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. She was a special woman, and I feel like in my life, like my mom was like almost like my son, right? Like my whole world revolved around her. Like it was like, even to a negative like extent. And I feel like when God called her home, like it was an opportunity. Really, after that was when I accepted Christ into my life, because like my mom was gone, because my mom was everything. And like, so her not being there with me really opened the door. It was like put Christ back on the altar. Like, and he is my son, the son is the son of God. And so I feel like, God called her home so I could get in a right relationship with him, and I'm thankful for that. You are a good man, Pete.
Well, thank you, brother.
And
you are too.
I just would like to give you an opportunity if there's something you want to share or something you want to say. We want to know what your next move is, what you're in, like how can people follow you? How can people support you? Just you got the floor as long as you need or whatever.
All right. Well, I do have a Give, Send, Go. I mean, I could always use some help. So It's Gibson Go at J6Pete. And
it's gibsongo.com/J6Pete.
right?
Okay.
And you can follow me on X at J6Pete Schwartz. And it's the same on YouTube. It's on Facebook. It's just regular Pete Schwartz.
Okay.
And,
Are you posting your videos and stuff? And
I am posting the videos of my travels. It's a fascinating journey. I mean, even if you're not interested in the J6 stuff, you would definitely be interested in watching my travels.
it's like J6 Nomad, right?
Yeah,
Like
at this point, I am. I do plan on, though. I needed this to clear my head. I'm on day 26 of my journey, and so what I'm planning on doing forward is I feel like I really have cleared all this out of me. I feel great. I'm on top of the world right now. So I plan on coming down to Houston and going back to work, because I'm a welder and this is probably the best spot to do it. So,
well, nothing like Ryan Nichols driving to scare some level living into your life.
Right. Ryan Nichols driving. I'll tell you this, right? We went storm chasing for 4 days, right?
Chasing tornadoes.
And I realized that the tornadoes aren't as scary as his driving.
We also have a in-studio guest. I don't know if we want to put her on camera, but Allison, I'm not going to say her last name because we know there's a lot of haters out there, but she supported us through mail and just love and monies and time and phone calls and everything, and we're just blessed to have her here with us. And and again, I'll say that to the community, like you guys have no idea the amount of impact, like the commissary bags that y'all would send, or the letters that we would get, the mail, like the phone calls, y'all tuning into the vigil, the people streaming the vigil, Mickey, and then putting on the vigil. The people that were coming to visit us when we finally did get visits after 2 years in the DC jail. Like there's just so many. We have a wonderful community that supported us, and we're so thankful and blessed.
That's a true story, and absolutely, like some of these letters that maybe were insignificant to the supporters, would come to me at the darkest times. When I was in the darkest places I've ever been in my life, And so a lot of people don't really understand what just a simple letter can do sometimes,
Yeah.
And like Allison's a great example, and that's why I wanted to make that point earlier, that sometimes I seem ungrateful because I was still detoxing from prison, basically.
Yeah.
And it's not that, now I'm finding myself, I am able to, appreciate the support. And so it wasn't that I didn't appreciate it. It's now I'm able to speak to people and be able to tell them that I appreciate.
Well, again, we've shut down that emotion and that like sensitivity and kind of like maybe take things for granted, but you get out here and you kind of look back on that and you're like, damn, that was like, I can think about, like, he's actually making a login of all the letters that I've got, and I've got all my mail, and it's like, but it's incredible, like the amount of letters and just the love and the prayers. I mean, it's phenomenal to think about how many people prayed for us. Every night they would send out there at the vigil and call out the names of all the January 6th.
It restores my faith in humanity in this country. Yeah. I mean, it really does.
Well, we are that's the thing is we put our faith in these politicians, or even one man, Donald Trump, can only do so much. It is really up to the people of this country, like the people that are like writing letters to us in there. We need to be writing letters to our senators, to our congressmen, not that they're going to do anything about it, but they need to feel the pressure. And it's up to the average blue collar working man, father, husband, whatever, wife, mom, whatever she is.
Right. Watch your local elections.
Yeah.
Watch it at the roots.
Start local, work your way up. It should be local first.
Absolutely.
Poll watching, district committee men, join your local Republican Party, the women's club, men's club, whatever it is. And you've got to be actively engaged. And I'll say this, I say it all the time. Like Benjamin Franklin said, you have a republic if you can keep it. And keeping it is not being on your phone 24/7 and, just forget the world. I just want to make sure I raise my kids right and collect a paycheck and my retirement set. There's more to it than that. We've got to actively root out the corruption where it is, because this is a fight, good versus evil. We saw it with the pushing of the vaccine. We saw it with this transgender stuff, pushing this ideology on our children. We saw it with the pornography in the books in the schools. It is the erosion of the family, of the morality of America, and the undermining of our Christian roots, and our faith in Jesus Christ that undergirds everything in this nation. Without that, I feel like we're a lost cause and we're doomed to fail. And so
that's right. So don't trust the government to be the government.
when I think I hold our church responsible for this passivity that is corroded and corrupted what manhood is and what manhood should be and what it is to be the warrior father, the protector, the provider. They want you to sit down and shut up and, the government's always right. And, don't question anything and just do what you're told and shut your mouth. And when we want your opinion, we'll give it to you. That type of stuff. Like that's not who we're called to be as men. That's not who we're called to be as Christians.
That's a fact. And I saw something on the internet the other day that said when David went to fight Goliath, the people in this day and age would have said, well, let's pray for him and not make a scene.
Yeah. Violence is never the answer, David. Don't hit Goliath with that rock.
Right. Sometimes you got to slay the giant.
That's right. That's right. Well, I just want to I want to say thank you to Maurice, my roommate producer. He does this out of love and kindness. He is straight. I just want to say that. Where's the Bible? I'll put my hand on the Bible. As far as I know, allegedly he's straight. I can't confirm or deny that.
I'd like to ask Shane to stop projecting.
He didn't say pole watcher.
He did say that.
So again, thank you guys for tuning in, and don't forget we're playing chess, not checkers. Follow us on Rumble at the Real J6. We have a YouTube channel. I'm not sure what that is, but hit the like, share out the podcast if you can, and thank you guys, and God bless you. Thank you for coming in and being in the studio, Pete.
Thank you, brother.
Honor to have you here. Yeah.